Why don't we first of all just get to this conversation around the Hikoi, because Eru has just jumped in. So let's welcome to the show Eru Kapa-Kingi. Eru, good evening to you and welcome, sir.
Kia ora tātou. Great to be here.
Good, man. We were just watching. We were just watching the end of the other podcast here on this podcast. It was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah. I was wondering whether, I was thinking, it was hard for me to message you guys and say that it was taking a bit longer than expected.
No, it's all good.
Here we are. Yeah.
we were just killing time waiting for you. You know, we were just hanging around. Hey, thanks so much for coming and joining us. And thanks for giving us some time. You said you're a little bit under the weather, so we do appreciate you giving us some time.
All good, bro.
Let's have a look at one of these things that you're in part organising. The Hikoi from the far north, because of the treaty, the principles, the treaty principles bill. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the Hikoi, as it's in the name, Hikoi mō te Tiriti. So this is a Hikoi partly in reaction to the treaty principles bill, but not solely in reaction to the treaty principles bill. Every step along the Hikoi is less of a carrying. It's not so much carrying a fight, but every step of the Hikoi is a step in our own liberation as a people, and an opportunity for us all to be part of a kaupapa, to congregate on this kaupapa that we can pretty much all agree on, and remind ourselves of our role as tangata whenua, as the kaipupuru, or the protectors of not just Te Tiriti o Waitangi, but also Haka, which are these two documents that are behind me in my home office that remind me every day of my duties. To my right is He Haka, which was our Declaration of Sovereignty in 1835, which was signed by my tupuna Hare Hongi, Te Ururoa and Te Mahia. And then to my left is Te Tiriti, which was in 1840, signed by my tupuna Honeheke, Wiki Taitumu and Prao Nengaruhe. And so me and then all of us Tiwi Māori who descend from those tupuna who signed these documents and committed to these documents as protectors of our mana on this land against the world. It's our role to ensure that these pieces of paper and what they say and what they protect don't just stay on the paper, right? So it's a waste. What these papers will become a complete waste if the truth that they carry aren't also carried in the hearts and minds of my people, and then also across all people in Aotearoa who live here and effectively benefit from these documents which allowed them to make a home here. So that's the ultimate goal of the Hikoi, and it's open to anyone and everyone who is committed to the protection of the tapu and the mana that these documents have, and we invite everyone to join. And we do want the current coalition government to feel the heat and to feel nervous and perhaps fearful. But the Hikoi doesn't end at Parliament. Actually, the ultimate goal for Toitū Te Tiriti is to walk beyond Parliament and walk back to the world that my tupuna lived in before Pākehā arrived here. A world where they were the captains of their waka, the creators of their own destiny, and the shot callers. A world where they thrived, a world where there was no such thing as poverty, a world where jails weren't required, a world where we were proud in our culture and speaking our language, and almost everyone had a mataora or moko kanohi because it was just normal, you know? And so that's the world that we're trying to revert back to through Toitū Te Tiriti, not in a way to exclude people, but actually in a way that everyone can thrive. Because when tangata whenua thrive, everyone thrives. So that's the broad kaupapa, e homa.
It's a really interesting way to think about it, walking past Parliament to this future that you're talking about. Can you, like, thinking about that, what does that look like? Like, in a practical way, how does that differ from New Zealand society today, this future that you're seeing?
Yeah, so the Te Tiriti o Waitangi did not give our mana to Pākehā. It protected our way of living and being. And so what that could look like in the future for us is what it did look like 200 years ago. So where we managed our own economy. So a modern day version of that in 2024 might be Māori banks, Māori tax system, but not completely embedded in capitalist Pākehā philosophy, because that doesn't that's not consistent with how our tupuna lived either. They lived in a world where everyone got a feed, everyone, and no one was left behind. No one knew starvation or homelessness or any of those things that capitalist systems promote and actually are dependent on, right? And I'm sure we all know that. So emulating kind of what modern day versions of the realities my tupuna, my ancestors knew today, but still ensuring that philosophically those are embedded in our own tikanga and our own ways of being as a people. So yeah, it could be that. It could be Māori hospitals, Māori government, completely independent. The key word, I guess, is independence. And so not the current world where we have a Pākehā institution telling us how to live our lives. That is not what Te Tiriti ever envisaged. And the current reality now is a complete violation of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. But it's existed for a long time. It's lived a life, right? So it's pretty long in the tooth now. And many of even my own people struggle to aspire or dream of a world different to the one that we're in today. And that brings me right back to the importance of this kaupapa, is to empower and to sow the seed of belief amongst my people that we deserve better, and actually we can do this in our lifetimes. Te Tiriti was signed in 1840. It took Pākehās 13 years. In 1853, they set up their own government, and then it only took another couple decades for them to take all our shit, our land, and then to turn us into Pākehās up here, take away our language, all of that. So there was only 30 years really for Pākehā to figure out how to completely take over. So when people ask me, is that even possible? I'm like, what do you mean is that possible? That's how we lived our lives for ages, for 800 years before Pākehā arrival, and then thousands of years across the Pacific before my tupuna first traveled here from Hawaii. So it's reminding ourselves of our own power and our own sovereignty, and the need and the urgency to live that out right now and to just do the thing, as opposed to waiting for permission or waiting for some sort of prophecy to hit you in the face like, oh yeah, maybe we should do this.
One of the things I like about what you've said is I can just imagine David Seymour's head exploding. Just I'm done. It would just be gone. So I quite like that. Chewy, what are your thoughts, sir?
I just like listening to all of that, to be honest. I think the one thing that I want to zap on is just something we've mentioned on the show here. That what's good for Māori is good for all New Zealanders. And I think there has been an almost visceral realization in a big portion of our population that, look, they may have had some criticisms, they may have not understood, but I think that everyone can identify that there's been a seismic shift in the way the government is going about things. It doesn't seem fair. And I think the only thing that can really be salvaged here is to push real hard and get more knowledge out there, because every time there's something like I think back to the protest at Te Papa, where I know a bunch of people that I saw it live. They're going, oh, I don't agree with this. So why were they doing it again? Oh, it's not a translation. These tough times can be educational for a bunch of people. We've just got to bring them along with us.
Yeah, that's right, bro. And on that point, that what's good for Māori is good for everyone, just to flesh out what I've already talked about. So one of my tupuna, he was the first Māori on record to travel to London from Aotearoa. In 1791, he made the trip.
Wow.
And this isn't unique to his experience. His name was Te Pahi. This wasn't unique to Te Pahi's experience. This experience wasn't unique to Te Pahi himself. There were a lot of other Māori that kind of followed that path, his pathway, and other Pacific leaders as well that had virtually parallel experiences. But Te Pahi, when he got to London, he had almost an an existential kind of moment, and that was quite jarring for him, because for the first time in his whole life, he saw homelessness when he got to London, right? This was in 1791. And he got there and he couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't believe that he was seeing people eating out of rubbish bins, living on the street. And then what added to, I guess, the visceral reaction that he was having was, at the same time, he was seeing people living in castles that called themselves kings and queens and leaders of those people living in the street. And so that little gem, that kōrero, that historic gem for me, is a window into, again, Māori philosophy and what it means to be a rangatira or a leader in Te Ao Māori. So rangatiratanga in Te Ao Māori is measured by your strength to feed and provide for and look after everyone that lives in your realm of influence, right? And if you're failing to do that, you are not worthy of being a rangatira. And Te Pahi started to question these kings and queens and their integrity, because he thought, man, these people are claiming to be leaders, but they can't feed their own people. They're letting their people starve. And this, to me, was probably one of the very first interactions of tupuna Māori with a capitalist system. And that, again, shows to me that system never existed here in Aotearoa. Aotearoa was a place where everyone had a place to live, everyone was safe, and everyone had a kai. And then again, another hidden part of history, many of those early settlers that came from Europe were basically running away from that life of poverty, right? And that boat ride, right? You're not going to become rich on a boat ride from London to here. So when they got here, surprise, surprise, they're still poor, right?
Yeah.
But they benefited and survived solely off the tikanga of my tupuna, which is you always look after your guests, your visitors, your manuhiri. And so my tupuna, when they first arrived, they fed them, they gave them a place to stay, whenua to live on, and looked after them, because that's what our tikanga obliges. If you don't do that, then your mana as tangata whenua goes down, right? So it's in your best interest to look after everyone that comes into your realm of influence. And that logic, philosophy, still very much applies today. Us as tangata whenua will never forget our obligation to look after everyone that lives here in Aotearoa. But the thing is, we've been treated like second-class citizens, like subhumans on our own whenua for 200 years. So we haven't had the opportunity to fulfill our role as tangata whenua, because we ourselves have been forced into a reality of poverty. So yeah, that's just all evidence for me around the truth of the kōrero, that what is good for tangata whenua and what is good by way of te tiriti o Waitangi is good for everyone.
But if the system's like that, I just have one question. How do you deliver profits to the shareholders?
That's a great question. Yeah,
can I ask a real question? I want to ask a real question.
Yeah, of course.
Eru, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when the question of a Māori parliament came up, the recently passed king was like, not interested in that. There's certainly some elderdom within Māori who are not in favour of that. So within Māoridom, this is going to be a conversation in and of itself. Forget outside of Māoridom. How do you address that? How do you think about these kind of, Māori tax, Māori banks, Māori parliament, when some within Māoridom don't want that either?
Yeah, I think that particularly around the Māori parliament thing, probably the core issue wasn't the idea behind it, but the languaging of it, because parliament is so closely married to the Pākehā structure that currently exists, right? So divorcing from that might be difficult if we're continuing to use those words. The use of Māori parliament was always intended to be just a starting point, and the end result, the hope was always that it would be the furthest thing from a parliament and will likely have a whole new look, feel, and name, right? So it was always just a starting point. But I'm not surprised, because there definitely is naturally kind of generational differences in terms of what what tomorrow looks like for Te Ao Māori. I think probably my generation and below are more willing to kind of break out of the system and create a whole new system, whereas the older generation are like working within the system and utilizing that.
That's
but
the system they know to work within, and you're talking about
They
a new
know.
way of looking at things. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And they know that, but I don't see those things as being in competition either. I think both can exist, both can be true, and both can be productive. But it's a generational role. I believe my generation's role is creating a new world, but there are still today problems, right, that need to be addressed, and we can't just there's our brothers and sisters getting locked up. There's poverty, homelessness, poor health outcomes, all of those things. Those are today problems, right? So that's why I think there's actually quite a nice synergy there, even though from the outside it might look like dissonance. It's not.
I was going to ask as well. I just want to bring up this story from RNZ, like that. The Hikoi says from the far north to Parliament. What about the South Island, bro? Us guys down here in Dunedin, I think it's been proven pretty recently, us guys in Dunedin are pretty good at the old protest. You know, we can scrape a few people together. Is there any plans to bring people up from the south as well?
Yep, definitely, man. This isn't the first time I've received that question, and it's something that we've already planning on before we put the comms out. We're just, I've got a hui in a couple of days with a crew from Te Waipounamu who are mobilizing, activating, and so there's definitely an opportunity for Te Taitonga to get involved as well, which is that's key. Like everyone has to have an opportunity to be a part of the kaupapa, to truly be able to say it's a kaupapa for everyone.
And also just on the protest from Dunedin, I saw a news story today, Chewy, if you haven't seen it yet, that Whangarei Hospital is going to go through exactly what Dunedin's just gone through. So people in Whangarei, if you want some help, happy to come up for the weekend. And
cool,
get that going off. So,
that's my hope. I grew up in Whangarei.
Yeah, right. All right, look, Chewy, do you? I want to ask Eru one more thing before we go, but it's not really about this. So you got anything else you want to ask while we have Eru here?
No, please go ahead, Pat.
I'd like to know, Tāmoko seems to be quite a recent thing for you on your Instagram. It's showing the process. What led to the decision to do it?
Yeah, cool, bro. I think we're on day 6 now since I got this. This was
is it that new?
Friday. Yeah, it's fresh as. If we look closely, it's still peeling. And I suppose like most of my body is covered already, of my arms, front, back, legs. And for the last 10 years, I've been going through this journey of Mōkō, I guess I'd call it. And so getting the first part of my face done, this is just the first part. Eventually, I'll kind of come up here, but the first part of my Mōkō kanohi, that decision was a big one, I guess, for me, in that it's no small thing, and it's definitely probably the most nervous I've been for any Mōkō that I've received, just because there's no turning back at this point. Like, it's a huge commitment for me in terms of literally wearing it on your face. And the funny thing is, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had quite disparaging thoughts of Mōkō kanohi because of my own colonization and working through that. This is the result, I guess. And for the last 10 years, a lot of people assume that I grew up speaking Māori and that I've always been proud to be Māori, but that's not true. There was a huge, pretty much all through intermediate high school, and it wasn't that cool to be Māori at that point. It wasn't even that long ago either, but it was just easier to act and talk like a Pākehā. And so I turned my back on Te Reo Māori. I didn't speak it for ages. I turned my back on my culture, really. It probably didn't help that I was going to that my brothers and I were shipped off to this private school on the other side of town. And we're grateful that we had scholarships to be able to do that, but that led to kind of a huge cultural disconnection. And going to university and connecting with other Māori who were proud to be Māori was quite a new thing for me, and I'm grateful that it happened, because it kick-started a journey for me to now be comfortable in getting my Mōkō kanohi. And the way I've kind of always felt it in my puku is that like it was just something that was waiting for me beyond the horizon, and every part of my journey I was kind of stepping towards it, and yeah, here I am now, only a week ago, and I'm grateful because I have a 7-month-old son, and so to him this will just be normal, because he'll just see his dad every day and be like, oh yeah, that's normal. I didn't get to see that growing up with my parents, my grandparents. I couldn't name the last ancestor I had that had a moko kanohi. So it's a big thing for my family. And my dad's getting his in a couple of weeks, which is a big thing for us as well. Yeah, bro. So it's and I think it's just going to become more and more normalized and empowered. Yeah, bro.
I've got like one question, and it kind of sounds like I'm making a bit of a light humor thing. It's really not. It's quite a. I sometimes focus in on quite singular parts of a conversation,
right?
Because you had like a sweet ass beard as well.
Yeah, I've been told that. Yeah,
and as I looked at your pictures today, I went, because let's say Māori of the 1800s. Would they have had tomoko and facial hair, or would they have a way that they were clean shaven as well? Because I'm looking at you going, you'll probably never grow a beard again. And it just fascinated me, the idea of 200 years ago, what did they do? Got the mōkō, and then what happened?
Yeah, there are different, like a lot of those Goldie paintings of tupuna with their mōkō kanohi. There are some with mōkō and a beard. There are some, there's a whole range, bro. Like there's some with mōkō clean shave, short hair. There's some with mōkō long hair but clean shaved, and then there's some with just a mustache. Yeah, like there's a range of them, and there are some kind of those real older ones, just grey hair, and really the mōkō's quite aged at that point. And so I only started shaving to prepare for getting this mōkō.
Right.
Otherwise, before that, I was just a beard guy because it's just easier. And I'm sure you guys can relate. Yeah, you guys can relate. And I don't know if it'll make a comeback, maybe in the winter or something. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, so if people want to find out more about the Hikoi and what else is happening, what's the best place for them to go to find out more and to stay in touch?
Yeah, so the Instagram is the first port of call. Toitu Te Tiriti is, as it is there, Toitu_Te_Tiriti. That will be kind of the earliest release of information will go there. But we also have a website, Toitu, which is linked to our Instagram, Toitu, I better get this right, a website that will house all of this information as well. It is toitutetiriti.co.nz. So toitutetiriti.co.nz. That's our website. That will there's a handsome fella there you can see on the landing screen, and that will eventually
goes hard.
I'm lucky I've got like talented photographer mates who capture me in these moments. But there'll be a landing page in the next couple of days there with all of the information. This coming Monday, we're also going to release a more detailed version of this tile. So a blow by blow, day by day kind of thing for the people who want to get their walking shoes on and jump on the kaupapa. Yeah.
Excellent, dude. Hey, thanks so much for coming on board. I really appreciate you giving us some time. I always kind of like to say to people, thanks for trusting us. Because, you haven't really met people coming on board and having a bit of a chat, and we'd love to stay in touch and love to keep telling people about what's going on. Maybe even whilst the quiz going on, speak to you on some of the evenings and stuff. But it's brilliant.
Awesome,
and whatever we can do, as small as that may be, we'd love to be involved.
Yeah, awesome, bro. No, thank you for having me. And I've seen your fellas' content before, so it was pretty easy to trust you. And I know you guys are allies. And so thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Eru. Thanks for your time, man. All the best. Get better as well.
Thank you.
All right, dude. All the best.